one commonality I see with every major religion being practiced, including my own, is this idea of letting go, being humble, carrying a debt of humility to something of a higher power, of a higher being. And this could be probably attributed to how many of these religions were conceived, established during a time of political strife, a rigid social hierarchy, um, a community of people that, you know, in the midst of much chaos and violence of things like that. So this understanding of, there's something bigger than me is one of the most trickiest things, much toughest things someone can do. But I think the benefits and the aftermath is something of much appreciation and, like I said, benefit. Uh, but I think no other religious text or religious tradition does this, gives an example, so to speak, of this better than Christianity, and more specifically in the Bible. Jesus Christ as a spiritual leader. Um, as a practicing Hindu, I can, people are going to call me blasphemous, that's fine, but I look at many of the teachings of Jesus Christ and I look, to them how to apply to my life. There are very useful things that you can look at the Bible. At least the way I was raised, it's not a one size fits all. This is the only book you shall read. Um, I know other people are going to disagree with me with that, and that's fine. But I guess I think it's just fair of me to bring that out, just so people understand where I'm coming from with this. But I would say my favorite verses come from John 8. John 8's a very controversial book in the Bible because it's very unique in a lot of things that it ascribes to Jesus. But I think John 8 is the best at describing this idea of humility and humbleness and letting go of one's ego. So for those of you don't know, John 8 talks about, um, the idea of forgiveness. I have here truth and more specifically like mercy. So from John 8:1 to 11, we have a story about a woman who's caught in adultery. So adultery is obviously cheating on your significant other. Back during these biblical times, adultery was considered like any other sin. It was, publicly ashamed. Many people were stoned to death because of it, because of how taboo and, you know, repulsive it was at the time. So I think that's a good context. So you have this woman caught in adultery. And so the Pharisees at the time, who are like super strict people of the Jewish law, the Jewish moral code, drag this woman to Jesus to test him basically. And they have a trap, and it's the idea that if Jesus condemns her action, he contradicts his own message of mercy. One thing Jesus has said up until that point is, forgive all, love thy neighbor, treat everybody with respect. The first Christians, the first disciples were very flawed human beings, rejected by society, but, seeking refuge in Jesus. So if he condemns her action, he's contradicting that. He's not giving mercy to her at all. He's saying, this is wrong what you did. But if he lets her go, he would be contradicting the law of Moses. The Ten Commandments about thou shalt not commit adultery is one of the Ten Commandments. So the Pharisees here, who do not believe in as Jesus as the Messiah or whatever this case is, they're trying to put him into this trap of saying, hey, look, we're basically setting you up to fail. But, and here's the crux of the whole thing, Jesus goes, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Very weird English because it's obviously Old English, but I'll say that one more time. Let him who is without sin cast the first stone. And I think that is such a powerful set of words. I think other than Philemon 1:18, and maybe I can make a video about that, I think this response here captures Christianity in its simplest, purest form. And subsequently, right after Jesus says this, the Pharisees and the accusers of this woman began to slowly leave. And based on which school of Christian thought you um, fall under. Some people believe that people just all left, but I happen to believe in the idea that the oldest people around were the first one to leave, and they all left very slowly until the youngest people eventually left. And so, what does this message mean? It means that, Jesus is saying that grace is something different than, mercy. And I think Jesus here is providing this concept of grace. And I think this is reflected in a bunch of other religions about how it's like, the core message is it's very easy. And another imagery, another example in modern context that people use is, let's say you have a shitty breath and you go into a party. People are going to make faces at you. They're going to cover their nose. They're going to avoid talking to you. But at the end of the day, you're going to be the last person to realize that your breath is shitty and you might need to brush your teeth or take a breath mint. Um, and what is that, saying? What is the bigger context, the bigger picture here? It's basically the idea that it's like this. It's so easy for me and you and everybody on this planet to point out this is his fault, this is her mistake, she's weird for this, she's, you know, this and that, this is what's wrong with him, whatever the case is. But I feel like it takes a real man or a real woman to look themselves introspectively and say, hey, look, what am I, contributing to this world? Who am I as a character? A lot of Buddhists participate in meditative practices late at night of reflection. Who am I? What did I do today? What virtues did I practice? What viciousness may I have committed? This is also followed through an Aristotle, Nicomachean kind of ethics of virtue ethics, where Aristotle really hones in this idea of the golden mean. A big example is this idea of courage. Courage is what you want, but you don't want too much. You don't want cockiness, but at the same time, you don't want cowardliness. The golden mean is courage. So you see that with all schools of thought, with all philosophies, this idea of judgment, this idea of holding one accountable for oneself gets stressed more and more. And I think we as people, especially I guess the generation that I speak to most of my videos, should really take a deep reflection at what this really means. Social media and the like, it's a very easy trap of a comparison game of, I'm better than this person, I've gotten this reward, I look better, whatever the case is. But, funnily enough, social media, you can post as many pictures of you want as yourself, but you're never going to have the real opportunity to examine yourself from within and say, what can I do to improve? How can I lead a virtuous life? And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I think this story is so fascinating because we tend to live in a dualistic world of, you either condemn someone or you don't. Someone's a good person or a bad person. Someone's an asshole, someone's, your friend, whatever the case is. But I think Jesus in this story is trying to commit this or convey this idea that, it's not that black and white as you see. Nuance is there for sure. And most importantly, this idea of, I made a video a while back about this idea of forgiveness. For a lot of people, they don't want to say sorry because, it lets their ego, you're dropping your guard, you're being vulnerable, especially in a masculine sense. But at the same time, forgiving someone else can also be seen as, cowardice or, accepting defeat or brushing off some of the things that you've had to deal with. But I think Jesus goes a step further and to say, before you judge someone, look at yourself and say, are you someone who's capable of judging? But yeah, that's about it. I hope to go over more stories in the future, but this one has always stuck out to me, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for letting me share this with you. But thank you for watching.